So the reason Cypher setups on B are somewhat unique in their applications, in my opinion, is because of how easily this site gets util dumped. So some teams, depending on the comp, they'll util dump dice. Sometimes you'll get stun towered by a breach. Sometimes the raise nade will nade here. You don't really know where the opponents are going to throw their util until you're at least a couple rounds into the B hit. So generally, starting out, I will play in this position under here, under stairs to start with, until I see what util they use so that I can reposition accordingly. This position, you will have to move from this position, but when they use their initial util, it's very unlikely for it to hit you here. So for a basic setup that I would use until I figured out how the enemies are playing so I can reposition accordingly. Camera here. I think it's just the strongest camera you can do on this site. Tripwire here. Paired with a cage where the moss starts, you're putting it on the tip of this line. And then for your second trip, I would put it here. Paired with a cage on the edge of this box. Playing from this position, you see what util the enemy team's using. If they're pushing you from main, you can pop this cage and use it to rat inside of and kill the guy if he pushes into the cage with the tripwire, or reposition on the dice here. If they push arcade, this cage can be paired with the other one to allow you to rat around longer, popping it afterwards, or using this one if they're pushing arcade and running into this trip. Let's say the enemy team is not stunning or using any heavy util for tower right here, so you want to position here. For this setup, camera here, same strong camera, tripwire here, and with this tripwire, I don't have an exact position for where I stand. I just back up against this wall around here, and we're going to pair it with a one-way. Or again, I mostly wing this. I don't actually have a lineup for this either. I just place my crosshair so that it's along this wall like so, around this height. And if you miss it the first time, I'll just throw it a second time, and it's likely to hit. And then, for a second tripwire, I'm running here, and as soon as the round starts, I am placing my trip here. And we're going to start the round in this position. If there is a player who's lurking up arcade, we can do a bit of a trap play, where as soon as he breaks this wire, we shoot our cam dart. Shooting our cam dart will, the vast majority of the time, make him turn this direction. Ideally, it will play out something like this. They break your tripwire, you tag with your cam, and then immediately swing, and they are not looking tower. If they're going out main instead, you still have that tripwire to watch your flank, so you can play in tower somewhat comfortably. When they're starting to run out, you can pop this cage, play off your one-way, try to get a free kill, and then after using your one-way, you still have your second cage in your back pocket that you can just freehand off of. Maybe place it somewhere like here to stop their push from pushing into you, or it can allow you to spam off your trip, or you could even silent drop here off the stairs and swing out this way. Let's say the enemy team has an ult that makes you not want to play on site. Something like Breach or Killjoy, or even like a Harbor ult if they're playing it on this map for some reason. This is the kind of setups that I like to use in these rounds. First things is make sure you tell your teammates that you're playing retake on site, and maybe even like suggest for them to stack towards A while doing this. For our cages, for our first cage, I'm lining up against this line on the wall. I look at the bottom corner of this moss and then aim out slightly. I don't have an exact amount, I just about here and throw. For cameras, you can use the same faithful ones. Or sometimes I like to throw a camera just here because it gives a decent amount of info on site if you save it for retake. For tripwires, I don't have any set combination of two tripwires that I use, but I will mix it up between these.
Here. Here.
And then playing this is pretty simple. I'll show Jenny using my camera to make sure that no one lurks into sight. If they do, I'll force the 1v1 generally. If they hit sight, when smokes come up, we just spam our trips, get free kills. When it's time for the retake, if my teammate doesn't smoke here, I will generally use my second cage to smoke here, so that I can walk out without having to worry about arcade, walking all the way out to here, and then popping this one way, killing anyone who's playing slant. And yeah, pretty simple. If you were playing against a team that likes to hard rush B main, this setup's pretty effective at countering it. So starting with tripwires, you don't have to do anything too special. We're going to do double trips for main, probably something like this and this, paired with the cage from before, going on the line where the moss fades. And now for the spicy part of the setup, the one way. We are lining ourselves up the edge of the corner here, and then aiming at the faded part of this leaf and throwing. To make it easier to see exactly what I'm aiming with, I am aiming with this right here and throwing. We don't have a camera or anything for timing, but I have dialed it down to a pretty decent range of when is the correct time to pop it. And generally, for what I've seen, against teams that are hard rushing without a stim beacon, the correct time to pop it is at 134, and with a stim beacon, you pop it with at 136.
Cage triggered.
So, at those timings, pop this, swing out, try to get a free kill. I generally wouldn't commit for more than one, but getting one off here is plenty, to be honest. You're also getting insanely early info because you're seeing them when they're right here. So, a lot of times your smokers will have time to place a smoke here for you. So, you can continue to spam it. They run into your tripwire, get a free kill off of that. And if they make it past the smoke, you get this cage to rat around in and spam again the second tripwire if they run into the cage. Okay, so starting on Fracture A site, if the enemy team is mostly hitting through A main, this is how I like to play it. Starting here, walk into this corner under the stairs, aim slightly above this line, and throw for a one-way. Pairing it with this one-way, we're going to place a tripwire right here. For the bulk of my setups on A, if we are playing site, I am putting these two pieces of util. They're just extremely effective for stopping the run out. After these two pieces of util is where it varies depending on how the other team plays. After this cage and trip, I'm normally throwing one or two cameras. Either one right up here to see the lurk drop and to see main, so you have timing for your one way, or I'm throwing a camera into this corner as soon as the round starts and saving it for late. With the camera deep, saving it for late, I will normally place my second trip drop, so we have info on both sides. And with the camera up here, there are a few different trip combinations I would like. And with the camera up here, there are a few different possible trip combinations I would do. If the other team likes to also threaten the Sens push, I'll place a tripwire right here to catch the sand run out. Or if for some reason, we're in a situation like I've left sight and they end up hitting it late, it can also block the CT push. If I'm placing this camera and this trip, and there's a chance they will fight drop, I will place this tripwire, so that after they jump out, if they're pushing me sight, they will run into it here. And finally, if I'm extremely confident that it's just a main push, I will place a second tripwire in main here. And with this one, I will actually swap up the one way a little bit. Instead of placing this one, I will place this one instead. This one's just slightly deeper, and if you pop it here, the people on this trip can't see you either. So you can pop it here, off the trip being broken, or them running into it, spam through the trip, or spam the guy in the tripwire, and it's just a little bit better for having a deeper tripwire, so I prefer that one with it. In basically all these setups, I'm only throwing one cage. Generally the second one, I just really like freehanding on this site. If they're dropping out drop, I'll throw something like this, just so I can run around it. And if they're pressuring main, if I'm able to stop them with the one way, I might throw something like this, where I can rat around it again, and also have the opportunity to peek out here or reposition top site. So that's normally how I would play if I'm playing on site for Fracture. If the enemy team is heavily threatening Sens, this is what I'll do instead normally. So for this setup, I don't really need a tripwire for myself for the setup. So I will generally just throw 2 info ones in main and drop. And then for cages, I'll normally just throw one in the choke on A and tell my teammate if he's playing on site that I have it there and that he can call for it whenever he needs it. And then for the actual bread and butter of this setup, what I'm actually playing off of, I'll line myself against the wall here. I will look at this metal pipe and then look up 2 squares in the roof here into the middle of it and throw. Paired with this, I will then instantly throw this camera while jumping out and play right here. This camera can be used to open the door so that you can pop your one way and fight and get a free kill. And it also has the added benefit compared to other cameras that people use to open this door if they're one way, that it can see the site run out. And finally, for a site, if you want to play retake, this is the util I would use. For cameras, I'll place one in the corner right here. This camera can be saved into a post plant to activate and get good info on site, but to be honest, you can honestly sit inside of this thing, and most of the time, if you just get off of it when they're hitting site, they won't actually break it because this is such an odd angle to be looking at while hitting the site. Most people are not gonna be looking into this corner like that. So I found oftentimes I can just read this camera for info before they hit the site, and then just exit it and save it for retake, and I will still have it. And then for tripwires, I honestly run the exact 2 same ones if I'm playing retake. I place one all the way out as far as possible in this box here, and one that will catch people running up the stairs and is attached to the bottom here. For cages, I only throw one, which is one right here. You don't need an exact lineup for this, but it can be a little bit tricky. You will just jump up here and land it on this crack. I'm actually surprised I landed it the first go. But now, basically, playing in CT, spam off your trips whenever they hit to get free kills. And then, when it's time to retake, you can pop your camera, tag someone, get info on site for your teammates, and when you're running out, when it's time to clear this corner, this area over here, you have a one way for it, which you can use to get kills on these guys. Normally, I would just save my second cage so that I can have it for retake on both A or B and just freehand it. But if you want, you could also just place in the choke and use it while running out with your one way.